Logan just quit. And Logan was an incredible performer at his company who did real estate on the side. He had his own rental properties and he was making incredible money. And he said, I make more in my real estate investing part-time than I do in my W-2. So I'm going in full-time. He now owns over 4,000 units on his own in 5 years. So he helped, kind of spark that interest. And when my husband said, I think we should get involved in real estate investing.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Freedom Blueprint. I'm really looking forward to our time today where I'm going to chat with Julie Crawford, a housewife turned real estate investor. Thank you so much for taking the time to come chat with me, Julie.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, Julie has an amazing story. She and I are friends, and I'm really excited to bring her on and have her share her wisdom with everyone. To give you a little bit of an idea of her experience, Julie is a real estate investor, and she turned her husband's W-2 income into a thriving portfolio of 73 doors, including single-family, multifamily, and midterm rentals. And they're all managed through her own property management company. A former social worker and school counselor, Julie now focuses on building wealth and financial freedom while living out of state. She's passionate about growing into larger multifamily deals and inspiring others to take bold steps toward their goals. Wow. Julie, I know you're doing so much. You're doing a lot of things that our listeners want to learn how to do themselves. So what I'd love is for you to kind of start at the beginning and tell us, how did you get here?
I was a stay-at-home mom for many years and when my kids were younger, and my husband came home one day from work and said, hey, Logan just quit. And Logan was an incredible performer at his company who did real estate on the side. He had his own rental properties and he was making incredible money. And he said, I make more in my real estate investing part-time than I do in my W-2. So I'm going in full-time. He now owns over 4,000 units on his own in 5 years. So he helped, kind of spark that interest. And when my husband said, I think we should get involved in real estate investing, Logan says that there's all these great tax advantages and strategies that we can use. So that's where the spark, kind of ignited something in me. As a stay-at-home mom, I was always looking for something that would, I could contribute in some way, financially, or just have something else to focus on other than just, of course, raising children and keeping the home and all that kind of stuff, because I was always used to working. And I never thought that I would actually be a stay-at-home mom, but I had the great opportunity to do that. And so I started listening to podcasts and reading books and just really became obsessed. This is prior to COVID. My son was 16 at the time and he became obsessed. We both read Rich Dad, Poor Dad together. And he was like, well, I'm not going to college and I'm going to be a real estate investor. So it's crazy. He's 21 and now investing in real estate. So it just started that way. And the first property was a challenge, but it was exciting. It was scary. It was all of those things. And then just turned into continually buying. And so really it just started that way with getting interested and then doing our first deal, and the rest is history.
Awesome. And you are such a success story. And I'm excited to share all those details of how it went. So you did research. I love how you just kind of jumped into it. For people who are in that initial few doors phase, are there any great resources you would share about this is where you felt like you really learned a lot, or, a go-to place that you relied on as you were first getting started?
Yeah, I would say finding a community of people who are doing what you want to do or have an interest in what you're doing, because you learn from the people that you surround yourself with. And so going to meetups or looking on Facebook groups, and that's how, I really attribute an accountability group that I found online to helping me be accountable to what I said I was going to do each week. So really, I think just connecting with other people who are doing what you want to do is, in a sense, finding a mentor. And I think that's the biggest thing, because we're so scared. And sometimes you have to borrow someone else's courage to be able to feel that, okay, I can do this, and especially if you see other people and they've done it and you're like, okay, if they've done it, then I can do it too.
I agree. That last part of, okay, they've done it, then I can do it too, I know was a big part of my journey as well. And what I see that you really highlighted there is it's not necessarily learning the facts from other people. It's the accountability and the emotional support that you got along the way as well.
Oh, yeah. It can be a pretty lonely journey and it can be pretty intimidating, especially for females, I think, because usually there's a lot of men in this world, right? In the real estate investing world. And when you find other people who are willing to, teach you what they know and even kind of bring you along to other meetings or they make connections for you that you may not have ever had the opportunity to meet. It just goes so far. And then you continue to meet more and more people that can help you.
Very true. It does snowball like that. That's a really
Mhm.
good point. Now, I love how you've been dynamic and you've done multiple different strategies. And I'd love to hear kind of how that strategy evolution happened, like where you started, why you pivoted, and what you're looking to do going forward.
When we first got started, I kept hearing from a lot of people use other people's money. They call it OPM. And I don't like to ask people for money. I didn't want to do that. And, eventually we ended up doing that, which has been great. So initially we just made a mistake, but we learned from it. And I think you learned there's a lot of learning that goes on in this business. And the first property, we heard somebody say, "Oh, I can do it all. I can sell you the property. I can renovate it. I can manage it." And we're like, "Here's $100,000, and then that didn't work out well. But we ended up, as we continued to learn, and we're like, "Oh, let's see if we can strategize this deal or change this deal to where it's a win-win." So we have several properties where we put zero money down. We were able to get the sellers to finance the 20% down. And then other ones we have where, we'll say a $10,000, $20,000 maintenance credit or something like that. So at closing, we're coming to the table with less money. So we just really started to get into the more of the creative financing deals so that we could grow at the rate that we were looking to grow at.
All right. Creative financing is very popular as we know, as people get to that point where their own money doesn't accomplish what they want to. So if somebody is looking at creative financing, do you have one or two tips or strategies or wisdom that would help them?
Well, I think the first thing is just to ask. I think a lot of people are just, too scared to ask if people are willing to sell or finance, and having the guts to ask for what you want. And then also one thing with a side of seller financing is the banks. I think people don't understand how much control the banks have and how much leeway there is. And so when a bank says no, that they're not willing to do something, you usually can ask specifically for what you're looking for. And one bank will tell you yes. So not taking no for an answer sometimes, or just saying, okay, and you finding someone else who will. That's helpful.
That's a really good point because the banking industry for lending is kind of crazy how different their parameters can be. So that's a really good point that just have a big book of contacts at different lenders, right?
Yeah. And, obviously, as you work with each one of them, you start to develop a relationship where they start to be a little bit more lenient with things. But initially, especially the new investor, I think a lot of them are told no a lot, and you just can't stop. You don't let that be a reason why you don't get involved or don't start the process. There's always someone.
Right. You have said a few times, including that the challenges that an investor faces, right? Like you have a deal that doesn't go well, or you have banks that are saying no. And often in, I think, the world in the real estate investing space, people only share the wins, right? So I would love to hear maybe about some of the non-wins that you've had, something and what you learned from it or how you evolved from that.
I think we've learned more than it's been amazing. I could write a book on it, I think. So probably the first thing is learning who you can trust. Being excited and working with the wrong people. I think you really need to vet any type of partnerships, contractors. A lot of people lack integrity. And that's what we learned with the first person that we decided to buy a property from. They lacked integrity. And property management has been our biggest issue for sure, especially being out of state. The first person managed our properties. We learned that there were some integrity issues there. So we decided to part ways, and that was really hard. I was nervous to fire them and all of that, but did it, and then ended up finding another property manager that was better and incredible integrity, but we just let them go at the end of last year because they couldn't grow at the same rate and the quality of their service wasn't as good to our tenants. And so we thought we were going to, find the right one, we thought. And after 6 months, we realized that one was probably the worst of them all, but they're now in a really bad legal battle. A lot of people are suing them, but we fortunately got out and created our own property management company back in September after me flying into town without them knowing it and seeing the condition of our properties. And so property management has been our number one issue because nobody's going to care about your properties as well as you do. It's just what I've been told, and it's definitely what I've experienced. Property management has been an issue.
That is one of the biggest issues I see across the board from buy and hold investors is that property management piece, right? Whether it's long term or short term, it's really difficult, like you said, to find somebody who's going to care about your property as much as you do and
Mhm.
be a great steward there. And so I find so many of the people I work with, they're looking to do what you did, right? They're long distance investors who are looking to take that leap to self management. So maybe you
Mhm.
can tell us more, especially because that journey is so fresh for you, what that looked like and what somebody else is looking to do it, your wisdom for them.
I would absolutely say do it. It's not as hard as you would think. I mean, now that we have some systems in place, but prior to this, we decided to change into our own property management. I was already managing about 30 of our doors anyways, and I had put those tenants in place. They were fabulous tenants. I rarely got a call. It was great. So the other ones that I had either inherited tenants or new properties that we had purchased last year, I didn't manage those ones. Property management company did. And I had always had this other lady who I went to high school with, and she was amazing. And so when I had flown home this summer and seen the condition of our properties and renovations that hadn't taken place and it really difficult, I said she was working full time. And I was like, how much are you making at your job? And I will replace it. Like, what can we do to have you come on full time? And it happened to work out perfectly. She was having childcare issues. I'm like, you could be a stay at home mom. You could, all this stuff. And so we hired her at a salary. I've never had an employee before. And so we hired her and it has been amazing. I think having clear and consistent expectations of the properties of my property manager, integrity is the biggest thing for us, is just honesty. And it is much easier when you put the right people in place. And it doesn't matter if you're in another country, you can manage from afar if you have the right people in place.
Definitely. You hit on a lot of things there. And I was kind of smirking with the integrity comics. I'm like, there are times when I'm like, are you even a real estate investor if you haven't had a legal issue with somebody you were supposed to be partnered with? Because, yeah, I've had the same thing where we've had issues getting into something with someone and not having integrity. So I
Mhm.
think that's a great point to make. And now, if somebody's looking for the logistics, so you hired somebody who was your boots on the ground, what does it look like for you to work with them as a long distance investor? What is that looking like for somebody else trying to envision, how they're going to manage a property across the country?
We have open communication. We're texting all the time and we meet twice a week through Zoom in the beginning of the week on Mondays, just to kind of set the goals for the week, what we need to have accomplished. And then at the end of the week, what we accomplished, what we still need to wrap up, things like that. We are always, I mean, it's just her and I for the most part. And we have a contractor that we work with. It's so amazing, honestly, because she is handling all the contractor calls and texts and the tenant if issues. And so she really just kind of fills me in as needed. And it's just worked wonderfully. Now, I did start Appfolio, which when we decided to convert over, we are using Appfolio, which is a great software for property management. So tenants are able to communicate through Appfolio, texting in all of that if there are any maintenance issues. And so my property manager, Jamie, handles all of that and she does a fabulous job. So it's actually very simple. Just meet several days a week.
I love this because what you're highlighting is what I love to help people do. Let's leverage other people and technology so that we're running our portfolio like a business. And that's what you're
Mhm.
doing. Oh, it's beautiful to see it work. If you are serious about scaling your real estate business, you need the Freedom Blueprint. This free guide breaks down the 10 essentials every investor must have to grow profitably while reducing stress. It's a proven roadmap to running your portfolio like a business, so you can stop working 24/7 and start building real wealth. Get your free copy now at adriennegreen.com or check the link in the show notes. So, Julie, one of the other things that I've really loved about your journey, and I'd love to hear more about, is you really have a heart of service and giving back and improving the community. I'd love for you to share with our listeners about how you're doing that through your real estate investing.
This is exciting. So my hometown is in upstate New York and it has been deteriorating for years since I went off to college. And we decided that's where we wanted to invest. Not only are obviously properties are pretty cheap, but they need a lot of work. And so we go in and we obviously do the typical inside of a full renovation, but we also make the outside look beautiful. But one of the things that we decided to do this year or this past year is we purchased a really dilapidated building, and we have now created 3 units in it, 3 apartments, beautiful apartments that just are actually finishing up next week. And we are putting children that are aging out of foster care in this home. This home is designated specifically for them. Their ages between 16 and 21 that are in the independent living program. And they get to live there, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited because a lot of landlords won't rent to that population because they think that they're risky. But we believe that everybody needs a chance, and we want to provide something great because they deserve it. They've been through a lot.
Yeah, that's really going to create a great opportunity for those people. And you make such a good point. Like, I know so typical people that age, they have to have their parents co-sign, and that's just not an option
Mhm.
in this situation. So I love how you're meeting the need and improving the community there.
Yeah, it's something that I really passionate about is just making an impact in every way that I can. It's just a 3 unit for now, but maybe later on it'll be something bigger. And the goal really is that once these kids transition out of foster care at 21, they typically don't have a place to go after because a lot of landlords won't rent to them. And so with these tenants, if they continue to be great tenants, then we will continue to rent to them past the age of 21.
Well, and you're giving them a great reference. If they do want to go move on, the next landlord or potential landlord can call you and you can speak to that person's history. Shifting gears a little bit, another thing about your story that I think could be really helpful to people is a lot of real estate investors are in that same situation where their household has that high W-2 income and they're using that, at least initially, to fuel their real estate investing. And I think one of the great benefits is those tax benefits. I'd love for you, if you have any wisdom or anybody who's along that journey, what's really worked well for you, or what have you loved about the tax benefits that you think someone else could benefit from hearing about?
One of the benefits of being able to stay at home and invest in real estate is that I get to qualify as a real estate professional status in regards to taxes. And what that basically means is that I'm spending at least 750 hours on real estate related activities. And we can claim, now I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, but this is just my experience, that we get to claim all of the loss from our properties and all the expenses basically related against my husband's W-2 income. And then what we've also done is we've done several cost segregations. And cost segregations are just a way to take the depreciation that would normally be pulled, I think it's 28 and a half years, something like that, all at once in 1 year so that you can have that tax advantage in that 1 year. And then the goal is to really continue to do those yearly so that you can continue to pull all that depreciation up front and reduce your tax liability. So for us, it's been great. It's been very, very helpful.
Yeah, that is so powerful to be able to use that real estate professional status and then those cost segregations together. So you're getting a lot of depreciation to offset those taxes every year. Thank you for highlighting that and really showing how the benefit that somebody who does stay at home, it's so much easier to qualify for that rep status than if everybody in the household has full-time jobs. So
Yes.
love that. And so you look to buy properties every year in order to have that depreciation then?
Well, I do look to buy every year. We continue to buy multiple properties per year. The only thing that I would say is this is the first year we haven't done it in the 5 years I've been investing, only because the properties we purchased, they were so low cost that it wouldn't make sense for us to do cost segregations on. But the goal really is to buy something bigger and then be able to do it this year, hopefully for next year's tax.
That's such a great little asterisk to put there and show how dynamic real estate investing is. You can have your general strategy and then yet every situation is different, right?
Yes, for sure.
So if you don't mind sharing, I'd love to hear, what does your real estate investing goals or plan look like for this year of 2025?
This year, the goal is to make $60,000 in rental income gross per month. And the long-term goal in the next 5 years is to make it to 100,000 in gross revenue per month. And right now, as of this month, we're at 56. So we only have 3 vacancies, which is the homes for the kids in foster care. And so we will be hopefully reaching that this year.
That is amazing. I love to hear it. I love where your goal is this year and your eventual goal. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And that makes me think that you are, and so I'm curious, really, are you investing primarily for cash flow? And what does that look like if you are?
Yes, we are investing for cash flow because the market that we're in is not an appreciating market. Yeah, it's cash flow for sure. The properties we purchase sometimes are $30,000, $40,000 for single family homes. We actually have a portfolio of loans, 3 single family homes that our mortgage is for $521 a month. So we bought them for 30,000 each. Yeah, it's amazing. We're going to be doing a cash out on those actually very soon. So
Are you doing a lot of like the burst strategy then?
we initially thought that's what we were going to do, and we have done a couple of those, but we have a 6 unit that we tried to do that on. And unfortunately, it really wasn't as profitable as we thought it would be to do a cash out because the market and the cap rate and all of that jazz, it just, in my particular area, it just doesn't support it like it would in most areas.
Then I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit more about what your strategy does look like.
Well, we try to buy a property cheap, 55,000 a door, ideally or less. And so we will renovate. And most of the time for, say, a 2 bedroom that we put in, a light flip, paint, flooring, that type of thing, we can usually rent for about $1,000 a month. And maybe we just recently purchased a duplex for 88,000 that we have 2 new tenants in at $1,000 a month. So the cash flow is really great.
So you are well above that 1% rule that most people struggle to find.
Yeah, we've never ever gone with the 1% rule. And again, because we're in a cash flowing market, we're about appreciation. We are, most of the time we won't do a deal unless there's a 30% return on it.
Now, I know what most listeners are going to say is, well, how are you finding deals like that? You don't live locally, this low cost area. How are you finding those deals?
I have about 5 realtors in my hometown that I work with. I don't stick with anyone exclusively. I've told them all, whoever brings me the deals, who I'm going to go with. And so if that's generally how I get it, sometimes other people I know of will say, hey, my uncle wants to sell his place. Are you interested? I mean, there was a time last year where I was getting messages at least once a week from people that I didn't know, or insurance agent that I went to high school with. He's like, hey, I have this guy who wants to sell. So I constantly am getting asked if I want to buy people's properties. And sometimes it's amazing. And the one with the 3 single family homes that I purchased, that was because I was buying another property, and she was buying a garage, a 6-bay garage. And one of the tenants that rents the garage, the landlord called me and said that there was an issue with a screw. And I was like, okay, no problem. And I said, hey, if you ever want to sell your rentals, let me know. He's like, absolutely. I'll sell or finance. I want them gone. You can have all 3 of them. And I was like, so it's just really telling people that you're interested in buying is huge, letting everybody know. And then in your circle, outside of your circle. And then I also it's not big, but I give a $200 finder's fee once I close on properties. So people I went to high school, I've given lots of finder fees, which is great. It's a win-win.
Thank you. There's a lot of wisdom there for people as they're looking to do the same. And is it fair to say that these properties are like C class overall?
Yeah, I would say mostly C plus, and then some Bs. One of the ways that I think is really great to try to find a way to buy properties that are off market is ask your attorney, because I have gone to the closing table about other properties and have asked attorneys, do you know anybody selling? And I got linked up with 6 of my properties that way.
Wow, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've never thought of that though. So great tip. Now, with a lot of these properties being B minus to C, that's the class where people really worry about self-managing. So I'm curious if you could share, like, have you had issues with late payments, with eviction, with properties getting trashed, or anything like that people would typically associate with that property class? And if so, how have you handled it?
The only ones that I've had to deal with are ones that my property managers put in. And if I put that, I've never had an issue with ones that I've put in ever. Because I think when you meet people, and I have high standards, and I expect them to have high standards of me as well. And so when I meet people, I let them know, right away that they are my customer. I'm going to treat them well, but I fully expect that in return as well. And so, of course, I've had several evictions just in the last year because of the prior property managers. One of the things that some people don't realize is that Section 8, at least after COVID, I believe, is when this all started. I didn't realize this till recently, is that they will give a bonus of 1 month to landlords for taking on Section 8. Now, this is not everywhere, but this is in my town. And I think that was an incentive for some of these property managers who are keeping first month's rent, but then also keeping that extra bonus. So in some cases, that was an issue for us that we discovered because somebody who has every red flag imaginable got put in my property this summer, and now we're in the eviction process. So of course it's going to happen, but honestly, there's so many fabulous, wonderful people out there, and you just have to do your due diligence. And I think some people don't call previous landlords, they don't call employers, they don't do the simple work that can really prevent them from a headache later on. I think people go to the grocery store hungry. They want a tenant in. Some people are like, I need to pay the mortgage. I need to pay the mortgage. And they'll take whoever wants to get in at that moment. I am not one of those people. I'm willing to wait until the right person comes by. I'm not going to put just anybody in my properties.
So much to take away just from that one piece. And I agree 100%. And I love that phrase because I do think the one first eviction we ever had, we've only had a couple, but the first eviction we ever had, we definitely went to the grocery store hungry and did not check everything on the application. It was maybe our second time placing a tenant ever. And since then, I agree 100%. We call and verify every number, every person we can on that application. Great wisdom there. Well, Julie, there's been so much here. Oh my gosh, I feel like people are going to have to watch this or listen to it twice to get everything and write down all your strategies to apply for their own real estate investing. And as we wrap up, I'd love to ask you our standard 3 questions that I ask every guest. And so first, what is a transformational system that you've implemented in your business?
Bookkeeping, specifically at Folio, but bookkeeping. That we didn't realize how much we were going to need that. I was starting with just pencil and pen or pencil and paper and trying to figure out my stuff there, and then realized quickly that was not going to be a very efficient way to run my business. Yeah.
Love it. And then what's your go-to tool for managing operations?
I would say at Folio again, in leveraging my property manager, just having a system that where everything is in one location, in one place. But I'm still working on other systems for sure.
That's a great answer. And then what's a book that has been transformational in your investing journey?
I would say High Performance Habits, mainly because I tend to want to do everything and I'm all over the place and really just needed to kind of be a little more intentional and have more habits around the business and what I'm going to do consistently, weekly, things like that. So I really have liked that book. It's been helpful.
Love that. So helpful. And Julie, if people would like to reach out to you or follow along with your investing journey, how can they do that?
They can reach me at Crawford Investments LLC at gmail.com. It's probably the best way. And I'm not really on Instagram very much, but I do have a handle that maybe you can put in the show notes because I'm not even sure. I know it's something with housewife investing, happy housewife investing or something, but I'm not there very much.
I've got it in front of me here. So you can find her on Instagram at Happy Housewife Investor with underscores between. So happy_housewife_investors. So go follow along when she does post stuff and shoot her an email if you'd like to connect or learn more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie, for being on. And everybody, thank you guys for listening. And I hope to see you again next week.